What is going on, guys? Joey Franzel here at Flex Training Systems, and today, as you guys can tell by the title, we're going to be talking about squats, wide stance squats versus narrow squats. I'm going to break it down and give you guys some just helpful info to help you sort of navigate your squat and figure out, how you should be squatting for you. And I've seen a lot of success just kind of going with my gut on this topic. Obviously, if you guys have been following, you guys know that I'm an okay squatter. Squatted 750 a couple times, and I've coached multiple world record squat lifters, and yeah, I feel like I am very well qualified to coach the squat. So I'm gonna give you guys some tips on that. To really just break it down, I just see way too many people squatting too narrow, and I think there's one muscle that people are neglecting, and it's a very powerful, important muscle, and we're gonna get to it, right? So, a wide stance squat. So how do we determine what is wide, right? I like to use the shoulders as reference, so I would say directly under your shoulders would be considered, to me, that's pretty narrow. And then anything outside of that, by the like let's say we were to say the length of your foot, like half of the length of your foot out, or like 1 foot space out. Like if you take the width of your foot, if you're standing with your feet directly under you, and then you just take the inside of your foot and place it where the outside of your foot was, now you're starting to get into a wider squat, and anything outside of that is going to be considered a wide stance squat. Typically, with wider squats, we'll really quickly just to talk about the toes. Regardless of whether you find squatting with a wider stance or more narrow stance is better for you, I think everybody, in lifting, you're never gonna ever say everybody should do something one way. But you can say like 95, 99% of people will probably benefit from trying things a certain way. Obviously, that's going to vary, right? But I think most people, specifically with the toes, should turn their toes out a little bit. Now, there's always going to be an anomaly that has weird mobility, and they're going to be able to have their feet like perfectly straight while twisting their knees out, and they're just going to be able to do that and not get hurt. But it's very, very rare, and I think most people, if they were to angle their toes out slightly, will just be able to squat more naturally, right? Because nobody walks with their feet perfectly straight. They're always going to be angled a little bit out, kind of rolling off of your big toe, right? So I put toes out under wide squats, but really any squat should have their toes out slightly. At least it'd be a good place to start. Now, what are the benefits of squatting a little bit wider? It allows you to get depth better, right? Because you're sitting between your knees and your hips. Like if you think vertically and horizontally, like looking from a top-down view, as opposed to a narrow squat where you're going to have to fold on top of yourself as opposed to sitting between. Also, it's going to give you a safer transition out of the hole, right? So when you get to the bottom of a squat, boom, you hit the bottom. It's going to give you a safer transition up and out, okay? Allowing your knees to come forward, allowing your hips to kind of kick back as far as they need to, really keeping everything over your center of gravity. If you have a wider stance and your toes are angled out slightly, you can kind of keep it. If you were to like look above, where the bar is, right, a top-down view, the bar is going to stay right over, sort of the balls of your feet, or in between your heel and the ball of your foot, so mid-foot, right? And that's essentially what we want the entire time, right? You're going to control that weight down to the hole. You're going to hit that safe transition because you are allowing enough space for you to get down there. And the neglected muscle that I mentioned earlier, the adductors, right? That big meaty inside part of your leg, is such a neglected muscle, and I think that a lot of lifters don't actually utilize their adductors when they squat. And the way I like to think about it is you want to be squatting with, your quads, your glutes, your adductors, and a little bit of hamstrings, right? You want to use all of those, all 4 of those muscles. If you can optimize your stance to hit depth and use all those muscles, you're gonna be really, really well off. Like I think about the biggest squatters I've ever coached, and they all have like many things in common, and one of them is having their toes out a little bit and really trying to utilize those muscles. Also, a wide stance squat is going to allow you to tip less. You know, if you squat straight down, boom, you hit depth, and then as you come up, if you're too narrow, you're going to have no choice but to tip forward, right? Because your body's going to have to maintain that center of gravity no matter what. And really, you know, a lot of people, they'll just sit there and like go crazy trying to fix that, and literally all you have to do is just go a little bit wider with your stance and turn your toes out slightly, and you're going to start tipping a lot less, right? You know, you don't have to, there's no like everybody should squat with their, you know, like their feet 3 inches outside of their shoulders. You know what I mean? It's really going to just depend on, you got to kind of play with it and see what kind of feels best for you, right? Now a narrow squat, right? You know, I actually started out, when I first started squatting, I was pretty damn narrow, and I had a lot of pressure on my back. Like my back was just like I would get a back pump every single time that I squatted. And then back in the day, I didn't understand why. It's because, you know, in order to hit competition depth, and if you're squatting with your feet directly under you, you're probably going to have to round your back in order to hit depth. There's very few people that can do it without rounding a little bit. There's one lifter in particular that has seen some relatively, you know, good amount of success squatting narrow. Laia is her name, from France. Hello, Laia. I don't think you'll ever hear this. But she does squat extremely narrow. I don't know how sustainable that is for her. I don't know what kind of back trouble she's gone through, or if she's gone through any at all. But I just know that for me personally, and in my experience, it's difficult for people to kind of get good at that. I am also a believer that the human body will adapt to the stresses that you impose upon it. And it will adapt through injuries. It will adapt through everything, as long as it isn't too much. You can probably get strong from any position, whether it's optimal or not. So, you know, that is one example of a lifter that's got a very, you know, it's like they compete at a very high level and they have a narrow squat. They're able to pull it off. I don't think most people can do that. She's also a very advanced lifter, and has a crazy strong core, and like certain characteristics that would allow her to do this. And I don't think everybody should start out squatting that way. I used to do it. I think I squatted 606 for a triple, you know, at like 220 body weight. Maybe I was 215. Like squatting this way, I would get hurt pretty often. I found that when I was controlling myself down into the hole, it was very difficult. It was very difficult to control, because like once you pass a certain point on the way down, there's a lot of like a lot of your muscles are going to lose the ability to kind of like put their, I don't even know how to say this, like they don't have a good anchor. They just don't have a good angle to really help you through the lift, and you kind of drop into the hole a little harder than you should. And that's what I found. I just also built up a shit ton of pressure in my back on the way down, and it just wasn't a nice thing. And then once I transitioned to more of a flat foot squat, and wider, a little bit wider of a stance, my squat instantly just gained 30 pounds for no reason, and then I just continued to explode from there, because I had already built up all this strength, and I had completely neglected, you know, a specific body part, right? So yes, the adductors. Sorry, I had to pause that. Had to pick up a phone call from Big Body. Shout out to the Big Body Flex Boys. Was good. Anyway, rounding maker. It's going to be difficult for you to hit depth. You're neglecting the adductors, and you're going to tip more with a super narrow squat, right? It's very obvious to me after squatting for so many years. As soon as I see someone, you know, they kind of got their feet right under them, their feet are straight, I don't even need to see them squat. I'm just like, this is not going to end well for them, right? This is you know, they're probably going to squat high. They're probably going to get a back pump. They're probably going to have chronic back issues if they don't address this, right? Most people, right? There's always going to be someone that can do that with extremely short femurs, and they can somehow pull it off. They're probably going to be squatting in a heeled shoe. You know, the heeled shoe is going to create more space in your squat. Like the entire squat is going to have more room. And if you have you know, if you feel better with a more, you know, let's say genetically you just have the worst adductors in the world, um, you know, then maybe a little bit more narrow of a squat and some heels might be good for you. But I think most people should be a little bit wider with their squat. They should turn their toes out a little bit. Like I said, it's going to give you safer depth and a better transition out of the hole. Imagine trying to hit depth super, super narrow. You're going to have to round some. You know, you're going to put a lot of pressure on your lower back. And it's just not really a natural thing, especially when you're loading super crazy weight. There's always going to be, like I said, an anomaly. There's always going to be like that one person that can have success doing whatever they want to do, but you got to find out what works best for you. Now, in my notes here, I have play to your strengths, right? So again, your best squat stance is going to play to your strength, whatever you're gifted with. You know, genetically, I think if you double down on your strengths, you're going to be a lot better off in general, and like even in life. Now, this next point, it's dangerous for me to say, because you want to look at what the top like world record lifters are doing, but at the same time, you don't want to just copy them outright. You want to just be aware of what they're doing, and then say, you know, okay, what is the best squatter in the world doing? Okay, they're built like this and they're doing this. Well, I'm not built like that, so I think if I modify this way or that way, you know, that'll probably be better for me. Now, obviously, if you have a coach that can kind of help you navigate this, it's a tough thing to do, and I wouldn't really have any super crazy expectations with your training until you can kind of figure that out, right? And that's really that. You want to kind of see what's around you, try to get pointers here and there, see who's kind of maybe built like you, right? And then, I mean, it's hard to say that, because you know, a lot of people think somebody's built like them, but they're not. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I would say most people, like I said, I probably ended with this, should probably be squatting a little bit wider, try turning your toes out a little bit more. And a lot of your squat issues could potentially be fixed just doing that. Don't neglect the adductors. They're super, super strong. It's like, you know, it's like I'm squatting with 4 muscles. You only get to squat with 3. You know what I mean? You know, but yeah, that's that. That's all I wanted to say, guys. Not too long today. We are, you know, about to close out the year, and then we have 2022 coming up, in which case the world of powerlifting, as we know it, is going to be completely different, and I'm really excited for that. Hopefully this germ that goes around the world and just decides to ruin plans periodically doesn't get in the way, because I got some travel that I want to do. But you know, at the end of the day, make sure you guys have your bunkers ready. If they try to lock us down again, we'll have bunkers. We could still train. We could keep it going. Make sure you guys are being smart and just preparing for the worst. You know, and just always have that like rainy day, you know, fund or backup bunker or whatever ready, so that way you guys can mentally not have to deal with what we went through. I guarantee you, if they do decide to lock us down again, I will be streaming in the garage again. I don't know if you guys remember that. Those of you that have been there during that time, that was a very great time. That being said, thank you guys so much for making it this far. I want you guys to be aware of the way that you're squatting. So let me get a hashtag #BeAware in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.